Imagine not liking the video. Do it now. Hey guys, what's going on? It's JMT and welcome back to another tier list video, an updated gear tier list video. And this tier list video is going to be different than the other tier list videos, and there's specific reasons for that. Because every time I make a tier list, I get pooped on in multiple Discord servers. So instead of being a walking meme today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a gear tier list that I went ahead and collaborated with some others. We went ahead and talked about it in a chat to see what gear would actually be ranked on a tier list. So not just giving it from one opinion, but giving it from other professional opinions as well. Not calling myself a professional. I am very far from that range. By the way, before this tier list video starts, I want to go ahead and say, guys, all of the gear that we're going to be including in this video is going to be nothing from the Merch's surplus shop. So what I mean by that is we'll be using the ghillie gear, but we won't be using the Merch's helmet because that's the Merch's ghillie. So we're not going to be using that, but we are going to be using the gear that are from the Merch's surplus shop that aren't a recreation of an already built gear. So for example, the supply bag and the sonar, we're going to be using those two gears because they technically are just their own gear. Even though that it's in the Merch's surplus shop, it's not a remake of anything. That's a normal gear in the normal shop. So we're going to be including that. And we're also going to be including the metal detector. But let's go ahead and move on with the tier list. So with my tier list, we're going to be going from the bottom to the top. So from D to C to B to A to S. So starting with the compass, why is this in the D tier? Because it doesn't actually help you at all with surviving. I'm going to be ranking most of these gears, or actually all of these gears, on your way to survival and actually beating survive the night, you know, surviving to 6 a.m. Compass gear is literally only made just to help you get relics inside of the game. That's literally the only point of that. You don't even need the compass to go ahead and actually find relics inside of the game, so it's not a gear that you actually need, but it could help you do it faster, and you still got to walk through the map without actually having a gear to protect you to get these relics. So that's why the compass is in the D tier. Next, we have the backpack. Some people might not go ahead and actually agree with this, and I can understand why, but not really. Okay, this thing is pretty big. You're not just going to walk by it and pretend that it's something inside of the map. I mean, it is inside the map, but what I mean by that is it's something that's actually like built inside the map itself. No, this thing you can tell is going to be a gear. It's huge. If you walk by it, you're going to suggest or think that something's inside of this tent. But once you go inside and turn the lamp, it should make it so your breathing's not there. It's kind of like a portable ghillie. That's what we've been talking about before. I would just go ahead and use the ghillie. So that's the reason why it is in the D tier. And then finally in the D tier, we have the metal detector. Even though you can't use this unless an event is out, even when an event is out, I still wouldn't use the metal detector to go ahead and actually get me coins inside the game, and it doesn't help you survive at all. Again, it's just like the compass. But what the metal detector does is when an event is out and survive the night, like let's say the Christmas event or the Halloween event that brought in the metal detector, the coin currency would come, and then what you could do is you could use the metal detector to go ahead and find these hiding spots where you could go ahead and actually get coins. But if that's the point of what I'm trying to do with this gear, I would go ahead and just use the compass over this thing to help me go ahead and get relics, because that'll give you coins as well. It's much faster in my opinion. But again, the gear doesn't help you survive at all in the game, and there is no use to even using it right now if there's not an event out, which is almost 80% of the time in Survive the Night. So that is why it is in the D tier. Moving on to the C tier. At the top of the C tier, we have the camera gear. Now, I know in fact a lot of people are not going to agree with me on this option here, but if we combine it with the other tier list that we're going to be going over in today's video from other tubers, the camera gear is going to be ranked low. It's going to be in the C or the D tier. The camera is just not as good as it was before. And I know there are going to be some people in the comments saying JMT forgot about the ninja perk. Okay, no, no, I didn't. But what are the chances that every single person is going to be having this ninja perk on when using the camera gear? Because what I like to link to this is that even though the camera gear is going to be used on a slasher, you could still hear their footsteps and easily follow a path to where they're going, and the effect doesn't last as long as it used to. So the camera gear isn't really going to help you out at all in actually surviving inside of the game, which is why it's going to be in the C tier. Okay, the old camera would have definitely belonged in A tier and even in S tier, but as of right now, this camera is going to be in the C tier. Next in the C tier, we have the night vision. A lot of people seem to like this gear for some reason. As I'm going to be talking about all these gears, by the way, I'm going to probably be bringing up other people's opinions before I go ahead and actually submit my opinion to kind of get you guys in a mindset of why I'm going to be ranking these types of gears and these types of tiers. So when we talk about the night vision and Survive the Night, I really like to bring up in these, you know, asymmetrical horror games that your vision isn't really something that you need all the time. You don't really need to see to be able to be good at the game. And night vision is pretty much implying that you need to have a better sight, a better vision. It's going to help you with your vision inside the game, being able to go ahead and actually see wherever at on the map. But with the night vision, I don't need to be able to see where I'm going or see in the dark to know where the slasher is on the map most of the time. You can pretty much know where the slasher is at all times without having to use the night vision. Most of the time, that is. So that's why it's going to be in the C tier. It's not going to be a D tier item because you can still use it to your benefit, but it's not something I think would help out too much in your survival and even just locating around the map as well. Because if you do have a good understanding of the map, which I do like to bring up a lot, you don't need night vision to help you find the slasher and your way to rotate around the map. So that's why I'm placing it in the C tier. Next, we have the supply bag. What does a supply bag do? If you do drop this gear, it's pretty much for other people. It's not going to be a gear that's going to help you out in general, unless you want to go ahead and drop the supply bag and then resupply yourself to go ahead and drop another supply bag. It doesn't make any sense, so don't be doing that, okay? I will get angry if you do that. If you're rocking with people who are going to go ahead and use gear that's going to help your team out a lot, if you guys are going to go ahead and play together and survive the night, like if people are going to be using the hammer or even a motion sensor as well, the supply bag is going to help out in those certain situations so much. But as I said before, the supply bag is pretty much a gear that you got to use with other people. You can't just go ahead and use it by yourself, which is why it's going to be in the C tier. Does it benefit you at all? Not really. So that's why it's going to be in the C tier. Next in the C tier, and the final gear in the C tier, is the master key. This item is literally just a troll gear. If you guys want to go ahead and have a gear that will just make your teammates angry as a survivor, then the master key is right for you. You got the right choice, okay? Pick up the master key. That'll definitely do it. If you guys watch the YouTuber lobby video that I did, Cake used this gear to his utmost full potential, and yes, it did make me angry. And this gear doesn't really help out too much as well if we are going to be talking about smaller maps inside the game. If there are bigger maps, then maybe it might help. The master key does have a lot of counters to it, especially when we got the ghoul and the lady in the game now, who just don't care about doors, okay? They really don't. They eat doors for breakfast, no cap. So that's pretty much why the master key is going to be in the C tier. Next, moving up to the B tier, starting off, we have the bandages. This gear does help out quite a bunch, but it's only going to be used if you actually get hit by the slasher when using the bandages. So of course, why is it in the B tier if it could be this good on actually healing you? One of the first gears, by the way, to go ahead and actually heal you. The only gear to go ahead and heal you in the game, because you're gonna only be able to use this when the slasher hits you. Yes, that means the slasher is very close to you. When you use this gear, the slasher is pretty much gonna be on top of you. Pause on that one. I just realized that. Pretty much when you use the bandage gear, the whole description of this gear is preventing you from dying, giving a little bit amount of time to go ahead and survive just a little bit longer until the slasher actually ends up just smacking you and killing you. Once you're hit inside the game, you can use the bandages and then it will heal you a hit or half a hit. I don't remember which one, but it doesn't really matter, because even if it is a half a hit or a full hit, the slasher's still just going to smack you right after you use this gear, or even while you're using this gear. That's pretty much why it's in the B tier. A good heal gear, but doesn't really help out too much in actually getting away from the slasher. Next, we have the scrap shield, a gear that could be in the A tier, but we're going to keep it in the B tier for now. I could definitely see why people would move this to the A tier, by the way. But the scrap shield, it is a good gear to use if you need to get away from the slasher and include looping while you're doing it. Okay, if a door is open and you need to go ahead and close it, but the slasher is too close to you, there's a slight chance you could use this gear to go ahead and actually stop him from being able to go through the door, because if he hits it, he'll get stunned for a short period of time and then be able to loop that door as well. That's one of the only reasons I can go ahead and see why this gear would be very useful. But other than that, it's one of those gears that if the slasher is chasing you, and he does hit that gear, he's just still going to be on track with you and still going to catch up to you and kill you while you're using this gear, because it does take some time to go ahead and recharge to be able to use this gear again. So that's pretty much the only reason I'm putting in the B tier. It does help out if you do want to go ahead and loop for a single time or continue to loop after using the gear, which is why I can see it be in the A tier. But for me, we're going to keep it in the B tier. Next, in the B tier, we have the audio player. This gear is actually not that bad. I think I ranked the audio player in the last gear tier list either a C or a D. I can't remember. This thing works out extremely well if you just want to trick the slasher. And a lot of people don't understand that, because Survive the Night does have a player base that brings in a bunch of new people all the time. And so when their only imagination of the game on winning as a slasher is, hey, I need to find survivor breathing sounds, they're going to get extremely confused when an audio player is being placed as a gear if they don't even know what it is, because they'll be attracted to that, give you time to rotate around the map and be able to have that audio player to use again and get away from the slasher at a certain point once you use that gear on him again. So it does work out extremely well. And we're not going to be ranking this gear in the B tier just because we're going to be using it against a bunch of noobs in Survive the Night. It can also work out extremely well against people who have played the game quite a bit as well. I myself get confused with the audio player sometimes if I'm playing as a slasher, because it does draw me in. Survivor breathing is the first thing that people need to think about when they're playing as a slasher to kill people. And if you have the audio player in the mix and you don't know you're going against an audio player user, you're definitely going to get tricked on the first time it's being used in a match. So it could definitely be a B tier item or even an A tier item. So the audio player could definitely be an A tier item, but for me, we're going to keep it in the B tier for now. Next, we have the tracker. As many of you who watch my channel may say trash bag, but we're not going to be calling it trash bag today or anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just kidding. We'll call it trash bag again eventually. Okay, just calm down. The tracker. Not a bad gear. It's really not a bad gear. I don't understand why I called it the trash bag before. I think the first time we called the tracker the trash bag is because I accidentally called it trash when I was supposed to call it the tracker. I think that's the reason why, and we just stuck with trash bag ever since. But the tracker, the first gear that you get inside of Survive the Night, is really not a bad gear. It actually helps you know where the slasher is at all times and whether or not he's actually close to you. It doesn't help you know where he is, but it lets you know if the person is actually coming to you or not, the slasher that is. I think the main reason that people don't like this gear is because when they play Survive the Night, they got a bunch of newbies that just follow them and have their tracker on, and it's insanely loud on your end. But if you're playing as the slasher and you're going against someone using the tracker, you can't really hear the tracker unless you get to a very close proximity with him. And that's what a lot of people don't know, because they think when the tracker is being played right next to them as a survivor, it's extremely loud, that the slasher can hear that from across the map, but that is false. So being able to have this tracker on and not go off until close proximity to the hearing of the slasher, and then being able to tell if the slasher is coming to you, does help out quite a bit. So that's why the tracker is going to be in the B tier. Next, we have the CCTV. I actually had this gear inside of the D tier, but then as I soon realized, it could definitely be boomed up a bunch of tiers. I had the animatronic as well, and the slasher tier list moved it down to the D tier, and I'm still going to keep him there just because it's not a slasher that I would use, and it's one of the harder slashers to use. The CCTV, I think, is one of the hardest gears to use inside of Survive the Night, and the only reason I say that is because you don't know when to really go ahead and actually use this gear. You got to have a good understanding of where the slasher would rotate to. You got to have a good understanding of the map, and your looping has got to be superior when using the CCTV to your full advantage. Because if you don't know where to place this thing and you don't know when to go ahead and actually enter the CCTV to use, you're gonna end up being stuck inside the game and probably dying without even getting the chance to see the slasher on the stupid gear. But if you can master those three techniques that we just explained with the CCTV, you could become a ghost inside of Survive the Night. Not even being able to be seen, I bet, in Survive the Night if you know how to use this gear properly, which is why it's going to be in the B tier. If used to its full potential, could definitely be an S tier gear. But since a lot of people find it hard to use, I'm just going to keep it in the B tier for now, but it's not going to be a D tier item today. Next, moving to the A tier, we have the Deep Night Goggles. This could definitely be an S tier item as well, but I'm going to keep this in the A tier just because I think it's a good gear to use if you want to hype up your speed. This gear, a lot of people want to use if they want to reach that speed cap inside of Survive the Night, because what this gear does is if you have it on and there are no ghosts around you, your speed will increase, and if you match this with other perks inside the game that help with speed as well, you could reach a max speed cap and Survive the Night, and you could just zoom around the map. And like we said before, if you got a good understanding of the map and know where to go ahead and rotate and loop, this gear could be used really well, which is why I'm going to be throwing it inside of the A tier. Next in the A tier, we have the Bear Trap, a very easy gear to use and a very good gear to go ahead and actually pair with other gears as well, like let's say the motion sensor or even the hammer, stuff like that. It works out extremely well. The Bear Trap was actually used with the barricade hammer to go ahead and prevent the ghoul from being able to go through multiple doors or barricades at a time in that YouTuber lobby video that we did. But if you want to go ahead and have a motion sensor as well to use inside of the map, it's definitely a gear that you could use for looping, for sure. If you want to go ahead and actually not have the slasher keep catching up to you while you're looping, the Bear Trap works out extremely well. And since this gear has a recharge time that is pretty much the same time for the slasher to have a cooldown from actually triggering another trap, it works out extremely well for these looping situations, especially for rotating as well, because you can't place these gears next to each other, by the way. You can't place bear traps next to each other, but if you do have them situated around the map to where your rotating plan is, it could help you out a lot with that looping plan. So that's why the Bear Trap is in the A tier. Next in the A tier, we have the Sonar, the gear that can help you detect the slasher. Yeah, you thought the slasher could detect survivors only? No. Well, now as a survivor, you can detect the slasher. A very good gear to have, especially if you pair it with a perk that you can get from an event inside of Survive the Night that lets everyone see where you're pinging the slasher is. But just this gear in general to help you ping the slasher and have an active ping as well. What I mean by that is that the green dot will follow when the slasher is being pinged wherever the slasher is moving. This is one of those recon gears I think is at the top of its list, which is why the sonar is going to be inside of the A tier. And the last gear inside the A tier, we have the hammer, the barricade builder. A lot of people like to build barricades, and a lot of people like to work with others to build barricades as well. Just place them around the map, and the slasher will have to have a tough time actually taking down each barricade to be able to get to survivors. And it does help out blocking off entrances that the slasher likes to take to get to certain survivors in certain spots as well. And this gear, again, can be paired with other gears like the motion sensor or even like a road flare. If someone was a road flare and you run back to a location that has barricades up, it works out extremely well, which is why the hammer is going to be inside of the A tier. Moving on to the final tier, the S tier, we have 3 specific gears inside of the S tier. And starting off, we have the road flare. The road flare is extremely good to use now. You pop this bad boy on the ground, wait for it to activate as the slasher comes to you. This is technically a proximity gear. You got to walk into it and the slasher will be slowed and blinded at the same time. And since it has a noise effect on it, you can't really hear where the survivors are walking to like you can with the camera while they're being blinded. And this gear could be used multiple times. You could walk through this thing and then let's say the survivor goes back through the road flare and the slasher walks through the road flare again. It will go ahead and do the same effects on him because the road flare does last for a pretty long time whilst on the ground. So this thing does help you out like extremely well if you want to go ahead and get away from the slasher and pretty much disappear from his field of view after that blind effect comes off. So it does work out really well in an escape zone, and I think the road flare does deserve its spot in the S tier here. Next, inside the S tier, we have the ghillie. A lot of people like to poop on this gear, okay, because they say campers use it. Be quiet. Do you know what a ghillie is used for? Snipers. You know what snipers? They camp, okay? Be quiet. I like to use the ghillie because I can pretty much win with it in every single match, okay? If I have the ghillie on in the old pirate bag, I'm pretty much unstoppable. A 60% chance to avoid slasher detection, and I can hide inside of objects or lockers, whatever it be, and then you just activate that thing when the slasher walks past you. They're pretty much likely not even going to worry about that specific box if they don't even hear a breathing noise coming from it. So most of the time, slashers just walk right past you every single time. And if they do try to detect and you have that perk on, they just can't find you most of the time. But that is pairing the gear, of course, with the perk, and we don't want to do that. The ghillie, though, does go ahead and remove your breathing completely, which is just pretty much OP, especially if you're just running around the map and the slasher is chasing you. You could turn on the ghillie and hide in a room and he could still walk right past you. But it is one of those gears that people like to use if they are just hiding most of the time. So even though that's what the gear does, we can't go ahead and say that it's not an S tier item. So it's definitely an S tier gear. And the last gear that we have is the motion sensor inside of the S tier. The motion sensor, I actually had this in the B tier last time or the C tier. I can't exactly remember. But if you use the motion sensor to your advantage inside of Survive the Night, you could pretty much know where the slasher is at all times, especially if you place it in places where you have your rotations or your loops at. It'll let you know not to go to those specific locations and then just find a new loop or rotation inside of a map. So you got to have an understanding of the map. Like I said before, once you understand maps, it helps out a bunch, especially when using these gears. But the motion sensor does help you out a bunch and just letting you know where the slasher is pretty much at all times. But yeah, that's pretty much my gear tier list in Survive the Night. If you guys have any comments or questions about my tier list, go ahead and leave it down below. I will definitely read those comments and try to respond to most that I can. But like I said before in the start of this video, it's not just going to be my tier list. We're going to be going ahead and comparing my tier list with other tuber tier lists as well. So displayed on the screen, we're going to be having Sama's tier list, Fallen's tier list, and Pumpkin's tier list as well that we all went ahead and created. And in conclusion, by looking at all these tier lists and then comparing it to my tier list as well, we can pretty much all agree that the road flare and the motion sensor and the ghillie and the bear trap and the hammer are probably the most popular items inside of Survive the Night that a lot of people like to use. I think those are going to be the gears that a lot of people are going to go ahead and stick with, and a lot of people are going to go ahead and use in the game. Comparing all these tier lists and then my tier list as well, maybe it'll make you guys rethink on your playstyles and to use these different gears that will help you out more in surviving in Survive the Night. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video, guys. Like I said before, if you have any comments on anything, on any of the tier lists and my tier list in general, leave it down below. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. My name's JMT, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.